Kneel down and lick Chloe's boots clean. A cold voice came from the sofa opposite. I followed the sound and saw a young man in a black denim shirt leaning lazily there. His cuffs were casually rolled up, revealing an expensive turquoise bracelet on his wrist. He twirled the beads of the bracelet casually with his fingers, and every twist felt like a final ultimatum to me. This was the male protagonist of the book, Cole Weston, the heir to the Texas oil tycoon. He was 5 years younger than Lillian, the original owner of this body, and also the creditor, who was forcing me to lick his beloved Chloe's boots at this moment. Laughter erupted all around. Someone even took out their phone to record, and another whispered a bet, "I'll bet $20,000 that she won't hold out for 3 minutes before kneeling." Tisk, you're giving her too much credit. A gold digger like Lillian who married Mr. Weston for money will do anything. These words stabbed at my ears like needles, but I had no time to pay attention. Memories of the original owner and the plot of the book flooded my mind frantically. The original Lillian became a widow just 3 days after marrying into the Weston family. In order to fight for the Weston family's inheritance, she was obsessed with seducing her stepson Cole, but every time she was humiliated by Cole and his beloved Chloe together. Today's boot-licking drama was a key turning point. Unable to bear this humiliation, the original owner completely turned to the dark side a month later. She began to mindlessly stir up trouble between Cole and Chloe, and finally was framed by Chloe and sent to a mental hospital, ending up dead without a whole body. Damn it, only a fool would follow the original plot. I cursed inwardly and rubbed my throbbing forehead. As a high school physics teacher with 3 years of teaching experience, I couldn't stand people who wasted their youth relying on their family's wealth and wantonly trampled on others' dignity. What's more, today was supposed to be the day I witnessed the fruits of my students' 3 years of hard work. Why should I suffer such humiliation here? I took a deep breath, pushed aside the people who were egging me on, and walked straight towards Cole and Chloe. Chloe was wearing a pair of limited edition white cowboy boots and was proudly holding her chin high. Her eyes looking at me were full of contempt. Cole was still twirling his turquoise bracelet, his eyes as cold as the winter wind in Texas. Have you thought it through? Thought through my ass. I couldn't help but swear. Under everyone's stunned gaze, I lifted my foot in stiletto heels and stepped hard on Chloe's white boots. Ah! Chloe screamed in pain, her face turning pale instantly. Cole's pupils contracted sharply, and the bracelet on his wrist made a sizzling friction sound because he squeezed it too hard. He stood up suddenly, as if he wanted to hit me. I had been prepared. I pressed his shoulder hard, pushing him back onto the sofa, and then propped my hand beside him, forming a highly oppressive posture. Cole, let's analyze the current force situation. I stared into his eyes, my voice carrying the seriousness I usually used when disciplining students. You're sitting on the sofa, and I'm exerting downward pressure on you. The force you're trying to resist counteracts the force I'm applying. Now look at your feet. Chloe is under the pressure of my high heels. The contact area is small, so the pressure is high. That's why she feels pain. This is the physics knowledge you missed when you slept in class, and it's also the truth you should understand now. Respect is mutual. If you humiliate others, you must be prepared to bear the counterattack. My words made the entire private room fall silent instantly. The wealthy heirs who had been egging me on just now all looked like they had been pressed the pause button, not daring to even breathe loudly. Cole was stunned by what I said. His mouth was slightly open, and his eyelashes trembled rapidly, as if he couldn't believe that Lillian, who had always only known how to please and show weakness, would suddenly become like this. At that moment, the door of the private room was pushed open violently. A burly man over 6 feet tall, wearing a football uniform, stumbled in. He was Taylor, Cole's childhood friend. Taylor was clutching his stomach and laughing uncontrollably. Cole, the scores are out. Guess what your SAT score is? 1,200. You're amazing. You actually secretly got a score that's just enough for a community college. You've been hiding it well. Taylor's laughter was particularly harsh in the silent private room. He laughed for a long time before realizing that the atmosphere was wrong. The smile on his face froze instantly, and he looked at Cole cautiously. Cole, what's going on here? I turned my head mechanically, my gaze falling on Cole. I pressed my foot down harder, and Chloe gasped in pain, tears almost welling up in her eyes. 1,200? With Cole's family background, he had attended the best private schools in Houston from elementary school to high school, and his tutors were top-notch, costing $2,000 an hour. How could he only get 1,200? What was the difference between that and writing the exam with his feet? I snatched the turquoise bracelet from Cole's hand and threw it hard on the ground. The bracelet scattered all over the floor, rolling into every corner. Twirling, twirling, twirling. You're almost getting tenosynovitis from twirling it. I pointed at Cole's nose, my hands shaking with anger. Your family gave you such good educational resources, but all you do every day is go to bars, race cars, and bully people. How dare you mention a 1,200 score? And you, Chloe. I turned to Chloe. A 900 score isn't even enough for a community college, and you still have the nerve to be the white moonlight. Starting tomorrow, both of you are going to repeat your studies. Cole was stunned by my scolding. It took him a long time to react. He stood up suddenly, his face ashen. Lillian, have you gone crazy? Me, crazy? I sneered, picked up a blueberry from the fruit plate on the table, and threw it at Cole. The tutor your family hired for you costs $2,000 an hour, and you only got 1,200. Who's the one who's crazy here? The blueberry hit Cole's chest. He froze for a moment, then flew into a rage. I didn't give him a chance to continue being angry. I picked up the blueberries from the fruit plate, threw them at him one by one, and ran out of the private room. This matter isn't over today. You have to repeat your studies with me. Cole was enraged by me. He didn't care about his image anymore and chased after me. The wealthy heirs in the private room huddled in the corner in fear, like a group of frightened quails. Taylor swallowed hard and muttered softly, "It's over, it's over." Cole really made Aunt Lillian angry this time. There's going to be a good show. Chloe held her painful foot, her face contorted with anger, but she didn't dare to chase after us. She could only stamp her feet in anger on the spot. I held the blueberries and chased Cole down the corridor of the club. While running, I scolded, "Why are you running? You have the guts to go to bars and race cars, but you don't have the guts to face your grades. What's wrong with repeating your studies? Repeating is for you to turn over a new leaf." Cole ran as fast as he could, but relying on my experience of chasing students to collect homework on a daily basis, I kept closely behind him. The blueberries hit him one by one. Although they didn't hurt, they were enough to drive him crazy. We chased from the second floor of the club to the first floor, and then from the first floor to the parking lot. Finally, Cole couldn't run anymore. He leaned against a black Cadillac Escalade, gasping for breath, his face flushed. "Lillian, what do you want from me?" "It's simple," I panted, holding my waist. "Starting tomorrow, review with me. Get into an Ivy League school next year, otherwise you don't even think about inheriting the Weston family's property." Cole stared at me, his eyes complicated. After a long time, he gritted his teeth and said, "You're dreaming." "We'll see if it's a dream," I said, then turned around and walked towards my car. Although today's incident had deviated from the original plot, at least I had vented my anger. Moreover, I faintly felt that changing Cole and Chloe's fates might be the key for me to get out of this book. Chapter 2, The Morning Ride Incident at Weston Ranch. The next morning, I woke up in the ranch villa of the Weston family. It was a huge bedroom of nearly 50 square meters, luxuriously decorated, with a thick cowhide carpet on the floor. Outside the window was a well-tended ranch lawn, and in the distance, I could see a few cows grazing leisurely. I stretched lazily, rubbed my still sore waist, and thought about what had happened last night. A smile couldn't help but curl up at the corner of my mouth. From the original owner's memories, besides Cole, there were only a few servants in the Weston ranch. Cole's uncle, Ethan Weston, had been managing the family's oil business in Houston and rarely came back. That was good. Fewer people meant fewer troubles. My top priority now was to make Cole obediently repeat his studies. I changed into a comfortable riding outfit and was tiptoeing out of the bedroom when I bumped into a tall figure head-on. I looked up, and it turned out to be Cole. He was wearing a black riding outfit, his hair a little messy, with faint dark circles under his eyes. He had one hand in his pocket, and his eyes looked at me coldly. It was obvious that he had been waiting at my door for a long time. "Where are you going?" Cole's voice was a little hoarse, probably because he had chased me all the way yesterday and been angry all night. My heart skipped a beat, but on the surface, I tried to stay calm, "Going for a morning ride." "What's wrong? Do you have a problem with that?" I held my head high and looked straight into his eyes, not letting him see the nervousness in my heart. Cole stared at me, his Adam's apple rolling. After a long time, he said, "You're always meddling in other people's business. You're not young anymore, and you still go for morning rides? Be careful that your waist breaks while riding." "I'm not young anymore." I was so angry that I almost jumped up. "I'm only 28 years old, in the prime of my life. It's you, only 23 years old, who goes to bars and races cars every day, with irregular work and rest. Be careful that you get fatty liver and high blood pressure at a young age." Once I started talking, I couldn't stop, completely in the posture I usually use to discipline students. In the past, my students had even given me a nickname, Lily and the Artillery, meaning that once I opened my mouth, I would chatter on like a firecracker. Cole's face turned red and then pale under my scolding. He pursed his lips, and the tips of his ears even turned a little red. "Fine, let's go together." "Together?" I was stunned, suspecting that I had misheard. "What do you mean by together?" "Morning ride." After saying that, Cole turned around and walked towards the stable, leaving me frozen in place. This plot development was not right. According to the setting of the original book, Cole should have hated me to the core. How could he suddenly want to go for a morning ride with me? Could it be that I scolded him into reason yesterday? Or did he have some other plot? I was full of doubts, but I still followed him. After all, only by having more contact with Cole could I better persuade him to accept repeating his studies. We walked side by side towards the stable, ready to ride horses and jog around the ranch. The Weston Ranch was very large. Besides the large lawn, there was also an artificial lake, and the lake was surrounded by bluebonnets, the state flower of Texas. I took a deep breath, turned over and mounted the horse. I was about to set off when I almost fell off the horse because I hadn't ridden for a long time. Cole had quick eyes and a quick hand. He held my waist and stabilized me. "Be careful." I was stunned. Feeling the warmth from his palm, my cheeks turned a little hot. I quickly sat still and said awkwardly, "Thank you." We rode our horses and moved slowly forward on the ranch. My riding skills were not good, so I could only hold the reins carefully. Cole, on the other hand, controlled his horse skillfully. He looked back at me from time to time to make sure I didn't fall behind. After riding for about half an hour, I was already out of breath, and my arms ached from holding the reins all the time. I reined in the horse, stopped, and gasped for breath. "I can't do this anymore. I can't ride. You go first." Cole also reined in his horse. He dismounted and walked to my side, reaching out to help me untie the reins, "Get down and rest for a while." I nodded and, with his help, clumsily jumped down from the horse. We sat on a bench on the ranch to rest. Cole took a bottle of mineral water from his backpack and handed it to me. Drink some water. I took the water, twisted off the cap, and took a few sips. The cold water flowed down my throat, relieving the dryness in my throat. I looked at Cole. The coldness on his face was gone, and instead, there was a trace of imperceptible concern. Why can't you ride for even a little while? Cole asked, his tone a little disdainful, but his eyes were not as cold as before. I rarely rode horses when I was in school, and I didn't have time after I started working. Besides, I also have lumbar muscle strain. I told the truth. While rubbing my waist, I observed Cole's reaction. Cole fell silent. He looked at my action of rubbing my waist. After a long time, he said, "From now on, during morning rides, I'll accompany you to ride slowly. If you can't ride anymore, we'll stop and rest." I looked at him in surprise, not expecting him to say such a thing. In the original book, Cole was a selfish person who only cared about himself and Chloe. How could he suddenly care about me? Could it be that my appearance had really changed him? We sat on the bench, looking at the cows in the distance. Suddenly, Cole said, "My mom passed away when I was in junior high school." I was stunned, not expecting him to suddenly mention his mother. There was very little description of Cole's mother in the original book. It only mentioned that she died of an illness, and soon after, Cole's father remarried. That was why Cole became rebellious. My mom was a very gentle person. Her favorite thing was to plant flowers on the ranch. Cole's voice became a little low, and his eyes were full of nostalgia. But after she passed away, my dad brought Lillian's sister, your predecessor, home the day after her funeral. From then on, I felt that this home was no longer mine. I started going to bars and racing cars, just to numb myself. I listened quietly without saying a word. It turned out that Cole's rebellion was due to family changes. He seemed to be glamorous on the surface, but in fact, he was very lonely inside. As a teacher, I knew the importance of listening. Sometimes, what a person needed was not comfort, but someone who was willing to listen to him. Later, Lillian's sister left, and my dad married you. Cole turned his head and looked at me. I originally thought you were the same as your sister, marrying my dad just for money. That's why I've always been mean to you. But yesterday, when you scolded me, I suddenly felt that you were different from them. I looked into Cole's eyes, which were full of confusion and perplexity. I knew that he was in a contradictory state now. On the one hand, he still had prejudices against me, on the other hand, my actions had made him start to re-examine me. "Cole," I said, "I admit that the original Lillian married your dad, and a part of the reason was for money. But now, I'm not her anymore. I don't care what you were like before. All I know is that you're still young, and you shouldn't waste your time on going to bars and racing cars. Your family has given you resources that others envy. You should make good use of these resources to realize your own value, instead of degenerating." Cole looked at me without saying a word, but his eyes gradually became firm. After a long time, he said, "I'll think about repeating my studies." I was overjoyed. It seemed that my efforts had not been in vain. As long as he was willing to think about it, there was hope. We sat on the bench and chatted for a while, mostly about his school days. I found that Cole was not as bad as he seemed on the surface. He just used a rebellious shell to protect himself. In fact, he was very smart, but he was not willing to put his heart into studying. At that moment, I suddenly remembered a plot in the original book. Adolescent children are prone to having an Oedipus complex. Cole's mother passed away early. Could it be that he had transferred his feelings for his mother to me? The thought made me feel a chill. I quickly moved to the side, increasing the distance between me and Cole. Cole noticed my movement. He frowned. "What are you doing?" "Nothing," I said awkwardly. "I just feel a little hot." Cole didn't think much about it. He stood up. Since you can't ride anymore, let's go back. I nodded and followed him back to the villa. On the way, I kept thinking about how to prevent Cole from developing inappropriate feelings for me. After all, I was his stepmother, and all I wanted was to make him repeat his studies and then find a way to get out of this book. I didn't want to get involved in any forbidden love plot. When we got back to the villa, the servants had already prepared breakfast. We sat at the dining table to eat, and the atmosphere was much more relaxed than before. At that moment, Cole suddenly said, "I've made up my mind. I want to repeat my studies. Moreover, I hope you can tutor me." I was stunned, then overjoyed. "Really? You're willing to repeat your studies?" Cole nodded, "Yes. But I can't let others know that you're tutoring me. After all, you're my stepmother. It won't sound good if it gets out. Also, I'll pay you a tutoring fee of $3,000 an hour." $3,000 an hour? I almost spat out the milk in my mouth. In the real world, after deducting taxes and insurance, plus the monthly $500 subsidy for being a homeroom teacher, my monthly take-home salary was only $4,500, which was about $50,000 a year. $3,000 an hour was simply an astronomical figure. I tried my best to suppress the excitement in my heart and said calmly, "There's no need for a tutoring fee. As long as you study hard, it's fine. But don't worry, I'll tutor you well." But Cole shook his head. "No, I have to give you the tutoring fee you deserve. Tutoring me is also work, and I can't let you work for nothing." Looking at Cole's serious expression, I was moved. It seemed that he was really starting to change. "All right then," I nodded. "But we have to set some rules. During the tutoring period, you have to listen to me. You can't go to bars or race cars anymore, and you have to finish the homework I assign on time." "No problem," Cole agreed without hesitation. In this way, Cole and I reached an agreement. I knew that this was just the beginning, and there would be many difficulties ahead of us. For example, Cole's uncle Ethan was about to return to the ranch. Would he oppose Cole repeating his studies? And what about Chloe? Would she make trouble? These were all issues I needed to consider. But no matter what, I had taken the first step. I believed that as long as I persisted, I would definitely be able to change Cole's fate and find a way to get out of this book. Chapter 3, The Ascetic Uncle Returns to the Ranch. In the following days, I officially started tutoring Cole. For the convenience of tutoring, I converted a spare room in the Weston Ranch Villa into a study, which was filled with high school textbooks and SAT tutoring materials. Although Cole had a poor foundation, he had a strong learning ability. As long as I gave him a little guidance, he could understand quickly. Moreover, he also abided by the agreement between us. He no longer went out to bars or race cars, and came to the study to study on time every day. Seeing Cole's transformation, I was very relieved. But just then, a piece of bad news came. Cole's uncle, Ethan Weston, would return to the ranch next week. There was not much description of Ethan in the original book. It was only known that he was the most capable person in the Weston family, who had been managing the family's oil business in Houston. He had a cold and ascetic personality and kept away from women. Moreover, before the original Lillian married Cole's father, she had tried to seduce Ethan, but was mercilessly driven out by Ethan and lost a lot of face. I was a little worried. I didn't know if Ethan would oppose Cole repeating his studies after returning to the ranch. After all, Ethan had a lot of say in the Weston family. In order to find out Ethan's attitude, I asked Cole to call Ethan and ask for his opinion on repeating his studies. Cole was a little reluctant, but he still did it. He stayed in the room for a long time on the phone. When he came out, his face looked a little ugly. "How was it? What did your uncle say?" I asked quickly. Cole sat on the sofa, picked up the water cup on the table, took a sip, and then said, "He agreed to let me repeat my studies, but he wants to talk to me in person after he returns to the ranch next week. Also, he asked about you. Asked about me? My heart skipped a beat. What did he ask about me? He asked what you've been up to recently, and said he wants to meet you when he returns to the ranch. Cole looked at me, his eyes full of curiosity. Lillian, did you know my uncle before? I was shocked and quickly covered it up. No, how could I know your uncle? Maybe your uncle thinks I'm your stepmother, so he wants to find out about your situation from me. Cole obviously didn't believe me. He frowned, but I always feel that there's something going on between you and my uncle. I didn't dare to dwell on this topic with him any longer, so I quickly changed the subject. Okay, let's not think about this anymore. It's good that your uncle agreed to let you repeat your studies. As for meeting me, we'll talk about it then. Let's focus on studying first and strive to get into a good university next year. Cole looked at me and didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he took out his textbook. Let's continue reviewing then. I breathed a sigh of relief and began to explain math problems to Cole. But I couldn't feel at ease. I always felt that Ethan's return to the ranch would bring changes to Cole's and my plan. A week later, Ethan returned to the ranch. He didn't go back to the Weston Ranch villa directly. Instead, he first went to the company in Houston to handle business. It wasn't until the evening that he returned to the ranch. I stood in the living room and watched the man walking in from the door. Ethan was wearing a well-tailored black suit and a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. He had a cold temperament and exuded the elite aura of a successful businessman from head to toe. His facial features were somewhat similar to Cole's, but he was more mature and steady than Cole. His eyes were deep, as if they could see through people's hearts. "Uncle," Cole stepped forward and called out. Ethan nodded, and his gaze fell on me, full of scrutiny. "You're Lillian?" "Yes, Mr. Weston," I replied politely, but I felt a little nervous in my heart. Ethan didn't speak. He just looked me up and down. That look made me very uncomfortable, as if I were a transparent person and all my secrets had been seen through. After a long time, he finally said, "I heard that you're tutoring Cole and persuading him to repeat his studies?" "Yes, Mr. Weston," I nodded. "Cole is very smart. He just didn't put his heart into studying before. I think as long as he studies hard, he will definitely get into a good university next year." Ethan looked at me, and a meaningful smile curled up at the corner of his mouth. "You seem very confident. But I'm curious, why are you doing this? After all, according to your previous style, you should be more concerned about the Weston family's inheritance than Cole's studies." I was shocked. I didn't expect Ethan to know about the original owner's past. It seemed that he had always been paying attention to the affairs of the Weston family. "Mr. Weston, people change," I calmed down and said. "The previous Lillian did value money very much. But now, I think helping Cole realize his own value is more important than anything else. Moreover, Cole is the future of the Weston family. If he becomes excellent, it will also be a good thing for the Weston family." Ethan looked at me, his eyes deep, and I didn't know what he was thinking. After a long time, he said, "I hope what you said is true. If I find out that you have other intentions, I won't let you off." There was a hint of threat in his words, but I wasn't afraid. I knew that as long as I sincerely helped Cole, Ethan wouldn't do anything to me. "I understand, Mr. Weston," I nodded. Ethan didn't speak anymore. He walked towards the stairs. "I'm tired. I'll go back to my room to rest first. Cole, come to my room tomorrow morning. Let's talk about repeating your studies." "Okay, Uncle," Cole replied. After Ethan went upstairs, the atmosphere in the living room relaxed. Cole looked at me, a little worried. "Lillian, does my uncle have a problem with you?" "No," I shook my head. "Your uncle is just worried that I won't treat you well. Don't worry, as long as we work hard, he will change his opinion of me." Cole nodded and didn't say anything else. I knew that he was still a little worried. But I believed that as long as we persisted, everything would get better. The next morning, Cole went to Ethan's room. They talked for a long time. When Cole came out, he looked very happy. How was it? What did your uncle say to you? I asked quickly. Cole smiled and said, Uncle agreed to let me repeat my studies. Moreover, he said he would find the best teachers for me to help me review. He also said that if I can get into an Ivy League school next year, he will give me a reward. Really? That's great. I was overjoyed. It seemed that Ethan was not as difficult to get along with as I thought. Yes, Cole nodded. And Uncle also asked about you. He said you're a very special person and told me to listen to you. I was stunned. I didn't expect Ethan to have such an evaluation of me. It seemed that my efforts had not been in vain, and Ethan had begun to recognize me. In the following days, everything went smoothly. Ethan not only didn't oppose Cole repeating his studies, but also gave us a lot of support. He found many excellent teachers for Cole and provided us with the best learning resources. And I continued to be Cole's main tutor, accompanying him to study every day. During this process, I had more and more contact with Ethan. I found that although Ethan looked cold, he was actually a very careful person. He would care about Cole's study progress and also my physical condition. Sometimes, he would even discuss Cole's study plan with me and put forward some very constructive suggestions. I gradually found that my impression of Ethan was slowly changing. He was no longer the cold and ascetic person who kept away from women in the original book, but a flesh and blood person who cared about his family. But just then, an accident happened. Chloe suddenly came to the Weston Ranch. She cried and told Cole that her father wanted her to repeat her studies too, and also wanted her to study with Cole and let me tutor her. Cole looked at me awkwardly, not knowing how to refuse Chloe. I was also a little hesitant. Chloe was the white moonlight in the original book and the key person who led the original owner to turn to the dark side. If I let her stay at the ranch, would it cause unnecessary trouble again? But on second thought, Chloe's grades were really poor, only 900. If she could repeat her studies and get into a good university, maybe her fate could also be changed. Moreover, if I let her stay at the ranch, I could keep a better eye on her and prevent her from framing me like she did in the original book. So I said to Cole, let's let Chloe stay. It's just right for us to review together and supervise each other. Cole looked at me in surprise. Are you really willing to tutor her? Of course, I nodded. We're all classmates. It's only right to help each other. Moreover, studying with one more person can make us more motivated. When Chloe heard my words, a surprised smile appeared on her face. Thank you, Teacher Lillian. I will definitely study hard. In this way, Chloe also stayed at the Weston Ranch and reviewed with Cole and me. I knew that the days ahead might become more complicated, but I was already prepared. I believed that as long as we worked hard together, we would definitely overcome all difficulties and achieve our goals.